Okay, we are recording. So welcome to Team Call. Today is Monday, February 4th. Yes, it's February. So crazy. I just have a few announcements. Nothing super exciting, except one is super exciting to me. The other two are just kind of reiteration of some things that we've been talking about. The first being the fact that it is officially Team Cup month. So if you're on a Team Cup team, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There are over 25,000 coaches on teams, which is super exciting. Don't forget, for those of you that are on a Team Cup team, that you get bonus points when you register for Coach Summit this month. And you can stay on top of all of your stats as far as where your team is ranking and how you're doing individually at the website teambeachbodycup.com. And also keep in mind that you must be on a Team Cup team in order to qualify for the Morning Meltdown 100 pilot test group with Jericho. So that's super exciting and something that I know a lot of us are pushing really hard for this month. Another thing for those of you on a Team Cup team, don't forget that at the end of every week, Team Beachbody Cup will send everybody on your team kind of an updated points kind of analysis thing to kind of let you know where your team is standing as well. It is not too late to get into the Transform 20 Coach Test Group, FAQ 820. It is open until, they extended it. It was open until January 31st. However, it's now open until February 6th. So if you're already in the group, you can earn a special branded hat. Transform 20 Challenge and Completion Packs are still $20 off through the end of February. And if you sign up somebody with a coach account in a Transform 20 pack, or if you purchase a Transform 20 bundle, you can still get into that coach test group through the 6th. And then the announcement that I'm super pumped about is the fact that Energize Fruit Punch Flavored is coming out in just a couple weeks on February 19th. It's supposed to be a combination of passion fruit, orange, tangerine, and pineapple, and it will be available in the 40-serving tub or the 32-serving stick packs, and that is FAQ 3479. So super excited about that for all of you Energize junkies like myself. But I'm going to go ahead and Aaliyah's like, woo-hoo. I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over to Farrell. I just asked Farrell like super last minute this morning if she wanted to lead Team Call tonight, because I sat down to think about kind of whenever I'm thinking about Team Call, I try to think about like where our team's at and what we need to hear and kind of how things are going. And I just feel like with February being this month of that, a lot of our boot camps are kind of focusing on self-love and kind of inspiring ourselves and just living a life full of inspiration and self-love. I immediately thought of Farrell because she leads her team with her whole heart. She talks to potential customers and challengers and her current customers and challengers with her whole heart. And I just thought that she would come up with the perfect topic for us to kind of kickstart this month of February with, regardless of whether you are in a self-love challenge group or not. So she is going to be talking about how your gifts are your superpower, which whenever she told me that topic, I was like, see, I knew you would come up with the exact perfect topic for us to talk about for our first Team Call for the month of February. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to her and take some notes. And if you have questions, pop them in the chat box and we'll get those answered at the end. But go on with your bad self.
Aw, awesome. Well, thanks, Beth. You always make my heart so warm whenever I get to hear about just like, hey, I just decided I would run this past her and she said hi, or yes, I'll do it. I always think to myself, man, like this is just another reason why I know that you guys are so my tribe of women, because you just get me. And I so appreciate that. I just messaged Beth this morning because my post this morning was all about just self-love and not being afraid to pour into yourself and remembering that we just cannot pour from an empty cup. And I know we all know that. And I know we talk about that all the time, but raise your hand if you've ever felt just a little guilty for doing that sometime in your life, right? And so I think it's just always really, really important. I mean, I love that we're like-minded women specifically and just being total girl bosses together. I love that piece of it, but I should say like-minded individuals. I love that we have this opportunity opportunity to just literally be exactly who we are. And I know I, for one, appreciate each and every one of you for what you bring to this team and this table and just this group of individuals. And I want you to know that I so appreciate that you accept me for who I am and what I bring to the table too. So let's just put that right out there and just share some love all the way around to start February off with. So the reason I wanted to talk about our gifts being our superpower is just a couple of different things. So it was inspired actually by a friend of mine. For those of you that don't know, I also work in the physical therapy world. And I have this little patient right now, this little man, and he is the most inspiring little guy I've ever met in my life. He actually is battling leukemia right now, which for some of you, you know that tugs at my heartstrings. Anyway, my mom is battling leukemia. And this little guy comes into the clinic with his mask on, and he just never lets anything rob him of his superpowers. And he talks about his mask as being his superpower, and he's got it like all decked out. It's got like Superman on one spot that's been like stickers and drawn on, and on another side there's Flash, and you know, just all of these individuals that he 100% embodies. And you know, he could literally be in a situation where, you know, life's really hard right now and things don't look like maybe some of his other 8-year-old friends and what have you. But this little man literally knows that his powers are in his own making and in his own body. And it just inspired me. Every time I work with him, he just melts my heart. And I thought to myself, you know, when in life do we decide that we don't get to totally embody and embrace and just love who we are as individuals? Like, when does that happen? And I don't know if you guys heard this morning or not on our National Wake Up Call, Kim Fitzpatrick, who I just love, she was talking about how she, you know, finally found her groove and finally found a spot where she truly feels like she belongs. She had always felt like she was too much of something, like she was too bold, or she was too big, or too sparkly, or too loud, or whatever, you know, the two was. And so when that happens, she talked about how oftentimes then we start to live really, really small. And we start to not just show exactly what our true colors are. And you guys, that is the absolute worst thing that we could do, not only for ourselves and for our family, but for our communities and for our challengers and just for life and the world in general. You were given the gifts that you have incredibly strategically. And it is our opportunity, not our opportunity, I don't want to use that word. It is our job. It's our responsibility to embrace those gifts and know that they were given to you with a purpose, and then for you to share that. Because, so I'll just use a couple of the people that I can see on the screen right now. So y'all know I have a gift of gab, okay? Sometimes I have to remind people it's a gift of gab, right? But it's a gift of gab. This girl can talk. So, but as I'm looking here, and I know Beth is like the world's best listener in the entire world. Like, I called her or texted her the other day because I was just having a moment, and I'm like, I know that this girl will just hear me where I'm at, no judgment, no anything, and just boom, be right there. Mallory is fiercely funny. Oh my gosh, that girl is like motivating in the most hilarious way ever. If I'm having a bad day, Mallory, I don't know if I've ever told you this or not before, if I'm having a rough day, I literally will just go to her stories and just start going through, because I am going to be smiling by the end, right? So what if Beth didn't share her gift of just being the best listener and intensely loyal? What if Mallory didn't share her humor and her inner spirit? What if I didn't share in the way that I would have been gifted? None of the rest of our team, none of the rest of our challengers, none of the rest of our families, friends, however far you want to take it, would ever be able to be impacted by those gifts that we have. And it's so important. It's like that book, The Butterfly Effect. It's so important for us to share those little bits, because then that starts to become just this beautiful, beautiful effect. And all of us together is what creates exactly what we all need. So I'll use an example The other day on my Instagram stories, I was having a little bit of a rough day. And, sometimes it's hard for me to be vulnerable still. So I think it stems from just all of us as individuals. It's difficult and scary to do that sometimes. And, working in this industry and working in the physical therapy world, and I teach in a physical therapy job and what have you. And so I kind of tend to feel like I'm supposed to have it all together and I'm supposed to have all the answers all the time. And so sometimes showing that vulnerability and the fact that I don't it can be daunting at times. But I thought the other day, you know what, I need that from other people too. So because that's what I need, then I'm going to share that as well. And you guys, just by doing that little post, and I'm telling you, it was difficult. I had to do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, walk away. And it was a story. It's not going to be there forever. I had several people message me and say, hey, thanks so much for sharing that. I'm struggling right now too. And we had just this conversation back and forth. And I know I was truly blessed by what they brought to the table. And hopefully I was able to do the same for them. So that brings us to the next question. Okay, maybe you're the person that totally knows what your gift is, or gifts, I should say. Awesome. Good for you. I'm super pumped. Keep doing your personal development. Keep rocking your gifts, because that's just amazing. That's number one. Number two, maybe you're the person that you're like, I'm not quite sure I know, what my purpose or what my gifts are. Or number three, you could be in the season of life that I find myself in, which is I knew my gifts and talents and I thought I'd kind of found my jam. And then I've started to go through different seasons in life, and I'm noticing that some of those things are changing and evolving. And so maybe you're there. Wherever you're at, I would encourage you to literally just embrace the process and embrace the journey, just like we tell our challengers to do in our fitness groups, because truly it's that process and it's that journey that transcends and really shows you exactly what it is that you have deep inside of you to share with the rest of your community, your world, your friends, right? So one thing, and if you guys have ideas and examples of what you've done to try to kind of dig deep and sort of find out what's the nitty gritty, what's inside your heart, please type it in the chat, or unmute yourself and we can have a conversation about that, because I think that it's really awesome for us to share all of these ideas together, because that's how we learn, right? That's the beauty of a team. But I thought I would just share a couple of things that I've done both in my younger years and then what I have been continually doing to make sure that I still just truly get me, like I get and understand myself. And so number one, first and foremost, and I think it is the coolest thing about Beachbody ever, because it's one of our vital behaviors, and that's personal development. So whether it's a podcast, whether it's a book, whatever the case may be, I know you guys have heard this and I've said it to myself 1,000 times, but let me just tell you, and I know Mallory spoke on this before too, when I start to slip, when I start to set these big scary goals and then maybe miss the mark on one of them and start to beat myself up about it and just start thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even know if this is for me anymore, whatever that goal is. I don't care if it's something Beachbody related or if it's, family related or whatever. That is when I look back and I start thinking, okay, I'm not doing what I'm telling everyone to do. Or if you're like me, I'm putting a check in the box and I'm reading or I'm listening, but I'm not truly sitting in and being present and trying to enjoy that journey or the process that we just spoke about earlier. And that's exactly what I was doing. And so I would encourage you to not only make sure that you're just checking the box, but you're finding something that speaks to you. If you don't like the book that we're reading as a team, okay, that's fine. Guess what? It's okay for you to stop if it's not speaking to you. There is nothing wrong with that at all. But just be okay in sitting in that, and then find what the next thing is that's calling to you. And so number one, first and foremost, personal development. And so having said that, one thing that really, really helps me instead of just checking that box and really being present with personal development is journaling. And so if you're not a journal person, I would encourage you to at least just try a form of it. Maybe, if you don't want to write, maybe you are going to leave yourself a voice recording on your phone, or maybe you're more of a digital person, you want to type it out and something of that nature. I like to put pen to paper because it just feels more cathartic to me. And the kinesthetic act of writing is just so helpful. Literally, they've done tons of research. When I say they, I'm talking about neuroscientists, have done tons of research about how actually going through and putting pen to paper does really, really help solidify those thoughts and those messages from our brains and turns them from more short-term to long-term memory. Really cool research to look at if you're a research nerd like I am. So I'm a pen to paper person. So I was going to bring this. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but this is called, and some of you may have used this before, it's called the Mindfulness Journal. And I love this. So it's interesting because you can read a book that goes along with this, but I have found, I've only been using this since Christmas because it was an awesome Christmas gift from someone. So since Christmas, I've read a couple of books. Every single book that I have read, I've been able to somehow incorporate this as well. So for example, it will ask you different prompts. So for example, this one talks about body awareness, and it'll give you some ideas and thoughts on what you should think about, visualize. Today's activity was deep breathing and just being aware of how you feel and what that might mean to you. But I have found if I listen to my personal development or I read my personal development, whatever the case may be, and then I sit and journal right afterwards for less than 5 minutes, it definitely takes me to that next level as to where I'm really starting to figure out who I am and what my gifts and what my talents are, and then how I can apply them. So that would be one suggestion that I would have to try to kind of figure out, like, really, what is this whole gifts and talents thing she's talking about anyway? The other thing that I would suggest if you are kind of a techie quiz type person, one thing I have my students do, and we do as faculty as well, is we take a quiz that's called the Strengths Finder Quiz. And so I mean, I'm a nerd and love stuff like that anyway, but this specific one, and if you want me to, I can drop it in the comments below tomorrow whenever we have the recording placed in the page, in our team page. But essentially what you do is you just go through and you answer questions, and then you are given a set of quote unquote strengths. The thing I love about StrengthsFinder in specific is it talks about what they call ceiling behavior and basement behavior. And ceiling behavior is, how do you feel when you are on your jam? Like you're living your best self and all of your attributes and your strengths are showing up as gifts to you, as gifts to your challengers, your spouse, your significant other. I mean, you are just like living in your mojo. So the opposite of that, whenever there's times of stress, or maybe you're fatigued and tired, or maybe, you know, nourishment is not the same, you're not eating brain-powered foods, whatever the case may be, they talk about how then sometimes those strengths can show up in what we call basement behaviors. And so I'm going to use myself as an example. I am definitely a communicator, like we had talked about before. And so that can be a strength for me whenever I am living in my mojo, like I said earlier, feeling good, and I'm just rocking my best self. That communication can be a solid strength. When I'm feeling stressed or anxious or I'm fatigued or tired, sometimes that additional communication can come out as aggressive, or it can come across as pushy, or again, I'll use Kim's words from earlier this morning in National Wake Up Call, it can come across as quote unquote too much. And so I think just being aware that neither one of those is right or wrong, it just is. It's who I am as a person. And then knowing that and being aware of that and then catching those things when they happen is so helpful. And so, for example, I'm going to use inviting to a challenge group. So if I'm in a place where I'm just checking the boxes, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing because it's what I'm supposed to do, but I'm not present in sharing my gifts, which is communication and connecting with people, what happens is I come across as incredibly unauthentic, and I come across as potentially like pushy word vomit. Like I'm a little too passionate, right? And so then what happens? Then that either I get ghosted, and then that's like, oh, that doesn't feel good, okay? And you're trying to figure that out, right? Or someone maybe responds back and, you know, has something to say like, oh my goodness, like that's not what I was interested in at all. And you can just feel that through the screen, they're just giving you the hand and like pushing you back. Okay, so at that moment, here's the thing. Using your superpowers to be your best self means that you recognize that in that moment, you are probably operating more in what we call that basement behavior. It's not wrong. It just happens. But recognizing that as soon as you change your mindset, and as soon as you step into the present and really feel and be and love you, authentically you, that basement behavior is going to jump right to this top again because it's one of your strengths. So understanding that really makes sometimes some of those harder things that might happen in communication or in life or in inviting or whatever the case may be, it kind of makes them a little bit more easily stomached, if you will, for lack of a better word. And so suddenly something that may have just like spiraled you out of control or made you have just all of this self-doubt can be utilized as something that's part of the journey, as I spoke about earlier. And what you'll find is quicker and quicker and quicker, you'll be able to get yourself from that place of unrest, unsteadiness, and you'll be able to recognize it and put yourself right back in that mindset again and be like, oh, no, you know what? I need to be proud to be me. I need to be present. I need to be authentic. And I need to know that my gifts and my strengths and my talents are truly what make me me, and nobody else has those. And then as soon as you flip that mindset, you're ready and your gifts will come across as that ceiling behavior that we talked about. Okay? So I'm going to look at my notes. Oh, that's right. Then the other piece of the puzzle, I think, is being aware that we all have those superpowers and loving yourself that way. And number two, and knowing that that's your uniqueness. And then number two, really developing those and understanding that sometimes they change and evolve as you change and evolve. But number three then is having the confidence to share that with the world. And that's that vulnerability part that I was just telling you about the other day. Whenever I was feeling like I didn't have, or you guys, I had a goal, I didn't reach it. I'm here to tell you, first and foremost, it did not feel good, okay? But I sat there for a minute and I realized that I am confident enough in who I am as an individual and who I believe our Creator made me to be, that I can live in that moment and feel the feels and make sure I'm showing up present and in that moment so that I can share. Can you guys imagine if I would have tried to share that misstep that I'd had in a place of not being present, centered, focused, and being aware of my uniqueness? Think about how that could have come across on my social media or just to anyone. It could have come across as someone who was, throwing in the towel, or woe is me, or, just putting negativity out in the world, which, you guys know as well as I do, we don't need any more of that. But thankfully, because I have people like you and my husband and my family that help me remember my gifts, I didn't have to go there. And so that's what I would encourage you to do, is just know that you are so worthy of being loved by yourself, by your challengers, by your family, your friends. And then I want you to sit in that confidence of who you are so that you have the confidence to be vulnerable, to share all of this. Because let me tell you, if you do, and when you continue to do so, the amount of just joy that's going to come back to you, and then you continue to give back. You guys, it's like it takes joy and it just doubles and triples it, right? Like you give it, it comes back. Your cup is full, you have more to send. And it's just that give and take, and it's that thought process of how can I serve today that will literally allow you to step into those superpowers that you already possess. They're already in there. All you have to do is take the time to recognize them, love them, appreciate them, sit with them, and then share them. So February is all about love, you guys. So let's remember not only to continue to share that love with others, but share it with yourself. Okay, grant yourself some grace and make sure that you're taking time to fill yourself up as well so that you can continue to fill up others. I love it, you guys. Thanks for letting me have some time to just share my thoughts. And there was one last thing that I'd thought of too. I think it was National Wake Up Call 2 weeks ago. Was that with Emily Favre? I think that was 2 weeks ago. she had made a comment that talked about how, yes, it was her success in her 80-day obsession, or yes, it was this that, had helped her along her way in her journey. But whenever she asks her challengers and her fellow coaches, when they come aboard her team, when she asks them, what was it that drew you to me, or why this team? And they said they connected with her. They connected with her story, her journey. You guys, what they're saying is they connected with her superpower. So don't be afraid to share that with the world. It's going to be amazing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Love it. I don't even have anything to add to that.
It's the gift of gifts. I warned you.
Throwing at the end, but I just have nothing. I do love though how I feel like it's so easy when you're running a business or you're trying to grow a business to just stay so laser focused on the business goals that you have that you kind of lose sight of the reason why this specific business opportunity is so amazing. And that is because your number one priority is yourself. And then how you talked about, kind of figuring out what those gifts are and recognizing them and owning them and sitting in them and how that develops confidence. That message, that story, that journey, all of those pieces about yourself that make you so unique and so incredibly awesome, all those gifts that you have, sharing that, having the confidence and being vulnerable enough to share that with other people is what is going to get you to those business goals. You know what I mean? It just blows my mind whenever I think about the fact that the way you grow this business is to become your best self and to love yourself more. And that's so crazy. I don't know. I just love it. It just makes me, I just love reminding myself of that, especially when I get wrapped up in the goalie part of this business. If you just take a step back and you just refocus and kind of realign those priorities with kind of those goals that you set, it's just the amount of growth that can happen is just incredible. So I love that. I thought this was so perfect.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for letting me share that too, because I 100% agree with you. And the only other little tidbit I would leave you with, Beth, you just sparked my thought process just from our conversation just in this last week. And that's exactly, we're goal-oriented individuals, and I love that, right? That's what draws us to one another in this business too. And whatever we do, we want to do a good job at it. But what dawned on me, and so I'd share with you just a little bit that there were goals that I had set for myself from a business standpoint that I just totally fell short of. And you guys, I have to tell you that was part of the journey. That was part of the process. I needed to feel that, because if I wouldn't have felt that, then I don't know that I would have taken that time to reconnect with that why, like Beth was saying, number one. And then number two, we know we're not alone in anything like that as well. And so when, God forbid, somebody else has something that happens where they're not going to reach their goals, because we're all going to do that. I want us to set goals so scary that sometimes we can't reach them. But then we know what it's like to be there and be there for one another. And it's all part of the process, and embracing that. And that's why I think it's so important to sit in that and just feel it.
Yep, 100%. Love it. Well, thank you, Farrell. Thank you so much. We don't have any questions in the chat. That must be because everybody's just has no words like me. But thank you again for, even so last minute, being willing to share your heart with all of us. And I will post this recording in the team page first thing tomorrow. And Farrell, I did see a comment asking for that, the link to the strength builder that you mentioned. So after I get that posted tomorrow, I'll just tag you in it so that it's there, and then you can pop that in there in the comment section.
That's perfect.
Okay, cool. Well, other than that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday evening, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye. Love you guys.